Keelder stood near the observation window of the warship's steadfast horizon and watched the stars move past. He had served 3 tours with the Galactic Coalition forces. He had fought beside many species. He had seen courage and cowardice in equal measure, but this was the first time he would fight beside humans. The Sovereign warrior turned his 4 eyes toward the common area where the human soldiers gathered. They sat in loose groups, talking and laughing. One of them threw a small ball at another, who caught it and threw it back. Their voices were loud and filled with strain. Humor. The Keelder did not understand. He studied them carefully. They were smaller than Soravan. Their skin was soft and had no scales or armor. They had only 2 eyes, 2 arms, and 2 legs. Their teeth were small and flat, meant for eating plants and cooked meat. Their claws were short and dull. By every measure that mattered in war, they seemed ordinary, perhaps even weak. Keelder had heard stories about humans. Every species in the galaxy had heard the stories. They said humans came from a death world where everything tried to kill them. They said humans could keep fighting even with terrible wounds. They said humans became something dangerous when they were pushed too far, but Keelder was old enough to know that every species told such stories about themselves. The Saurans said the same things about their own warriors. Words were easy, war was hard. He would believe the stories when he saw proof. Human female walked toward him. She wore the rank markings of a captain. Her hair was brown and cut short, and her eyes were a pale color that Keelder did not have a name for. She moved with confidence but not aggression. You must be Keelder, she said. I'm Captain Lisa Morgan. My unit will be working with yours on the ground. Keelder gave the traditional Soravan greeting, touching his chest with his upper right hand. I am honored to fight beside you. Captain Lisa Morgan smiled. It was a strange expression. Humans showed their teeth when they were happy, which seemed wrong to Keelder. Among Soravan, showing teeth was a threat. We've been looking forward to this, she said. The Sauran have a strong reputation. My people respect that, as do we respect humanity's enthusiasm. Keelder replied carefully. He did not say what he truly thought. The humans seemed more like children, preparing for a game than soldiers, preparing for war. Even now 2 of them were wrestling on the floor while others cheered. A young female soldier with yellow hair was drawing pictures on another soldier's arm with a marking tool. Their sergeant, a male called Danny Cole, watched them with a small smile instead of demanding discipline. Lisa Morgan followed Keelder's gaze. Don't let them fool you, she said. They know what's coming. This is how humans handle stress. We laugh because the alternative is harder. Keelder did not understand, but he nodded politely. The ship's communication system activated, and Commander V. Thans's voice filled the corridor. All soldiers were ordered to the briefing room. Keelder walked with Captain Morgan, and the human soldiers fell into line behind them. He noticed they became quieter as they walked. Wrestling stopped. The laughter faded. By the time they reached the briefing room, the humans stood in proper formation, their faces calm and attentive. Perhaps they were not entirely without discipline. Keelder thought Commander Vithan stood at the front of the room. He was an old Sauran, with scars across his face and a missing lower left arm. He had earned great honor in many battles, and Keelder respected him deeply. Our mission is Simple, Methan said the Kali Dominion has taken control of a mining colony on Valen 4. There are 600 civilian workers being held as forced labor. We will land, secure the colony, and hold until extraction ships arrive. He activated a display showing the colony layout. Red markers indicated enemy positions. There were many of them. Intelligence suggests approximately 2,000 kif. Defenders, Bethan continued, we have 800 coalition soldiers. The odds are not in our favor, but they are not impossible. Keeler heard a soft sound from the humans. When he looked, the young yellow-haired female was smiling. Not a nervous smile, something else. Something he could not read. The Croath are brutal, Bethan said. They will not surrender easily. They will not show mercy. We must be prepared for difficult fighting. Captain Morgan stepped forward. My unit will take the eastern approach, will draw their attention, while the main force moves through the industrial sector. Lefthan studied her for a moment. That approach has the heaviest enemy concentration. You will face significant resistance. Yes, sir, Lisa Morgan said. We know. There was no hesitation in her voice. No fear, just simple acceptance of a hard truth. The briefing ended and soldiers moved to prepare their equipment. Keeler watched the humans check their weapons with careful attention. They helped each other adjust armor straps. They spoke in low voices, and sometimes they touched each other's shoulders or backs. It seemed strange to Keeler. Saravan warriors did not touch before battle. Sergeant Danny Cole approached him. The human male was shorter than Keeler, but broad in the shoulders. His face carried old scars, and his hands moved with the practiced ease of a veteran. First time with humans? Cole asked. Yes. Cole nodded. We probably seem strange to you, all the joking and touching. It's just how we are. Doesn't mean we don't take this seriously. I have heard stories about human soldiers. Keeler said stories tend to exaggerate, do they? Cole's expression changed for just a moment. Something moved behind his eyes, something old and tired and very far from the joking man Keeler had seen earlier. Sometimes, Cole said quietly, sometimes they don't tell the half of it. Before Keeler could ask what he meant, the ship shook. They had arrived at Valen 4. Through the window, Keeler could see the planet. Below and beyond it, the shapes of enemy warships. There were more than expected, many more. Commander Vethan's voice came through the communication system again. All soldiers to landing craft. The enemy fleet is larger than intelligence reported. We launch immediately. Keeler moved toward his assigned craft. Around him, the humans ran in organized groups. Their faces had changed again. The laughter was gone. The smiles were gone. What remained was something still and focused, like water before a storm. He did not know what to make of them. They seemed soft and harmless one moment, then cold and sharp the next. It was like watching an animal that could change its skin. As Keeler entered the landing craft, he felt something strain in his chest. Not fear exactly. Something smaller, a whisper of uncertainty. He ignored it. They were just human. The stories were just stories. He would learn soon enough how wrong he was. The landing craft shook violently as it entered the atmosphere. Keeler gripped the safety rail and watched the humans around him. They sat in their crash seats with their eyes closed or staring at nothing. Their faces showed no emotion. The yellow-haired female, whose name he now knew was Amy Brooks, was moving her lips silently, perhaps a prayer, perhaps a song, he could not tell. Enemy fire hit the craft in red. Warning lights filled the cabin. The pilot's voice came through the speakers. Calm despite the chaos, 30 seconds to landing, brace for impact. Keeler had survived many combat landings. This one was rougher than most. The craft hit the ground hard and the doors opened before it stopped moving. Soldiers poured out into smoke and noise and flashing lights. The colony was already burning. Kelter ran with his unit toward their assigned position. Plasma fire streaked through the air around him. He could hear the harsh battle cries of the Croith somewhere ahead. They were large creatures covered in thick hide and natural armor. Their weapons were crude but deadly. They fought without fear because their religion promised rewards for dying in battle. The Saravan took cover behind a collapsed wall. Keeler raised his rifle and began firing at the enemy positions. Beside him, his fellow warriors did the same. The sound of weapons filled the air until it became a constant roar. Through the smoke, Kella could see the humans moving. They advanced in small groups, covering each other with precise fire. Captain Lisa Morgan led from the front, her weapon never stopping. Sergeant Danny Cole moved beside her, shouting orders that Keeler could not hear over the noise. Croith warrior charged at the human line. It was massive, nearly twice the size of any human. It swung a heavy blade that could cut a Sorin in half. Keeler expected the humans to fall back. Instead, 3 of them moved forward. They fired at the creature's legs, forcing it to stumble. Then Danny Cole stepped in close and put his rifle against the Kralith's throat. One shot ended it. The humans did not celebrate. They did not even pause. They simply moved on to the next target. Keeler felt that strange whisper in his chest. Again, the fighting continued for hours. The sun moved across the sky and still the battle raged. Keeler lost count of how many enemies he killed. His arms grew tired. His scales were covered in dust and blood around him. Saran warriors fell and medics dragged them to safety. The humans took losses too. Keeler saw one of them go down with a wound to his chest. The others did not leave him. 2 soldiers provided cover fire while a third pulled the wounded man behind a wall. Amy Brooks was there, pressing her hands against the wound, her yellow hair now stained red. "Stay with me, Pete," she said. Her voice was steady. "You're going to be fine. Just stay with me." The wounded soldier coughed blood. "Amy, it's okay." "No, you don't get to quit. That's in order, Private." Keeler watched her work. Her hands moved fast and sure, applying bandages and injecting medicine. Her eyes were focused with an intensity that seemed wrong on her young face. This was the same female who had been drawing pictures on her friend's arm just hours ago. Now she fought against death itself with the same cheerful stubbornness. The wounded soldier survived. Amy Brooks smiled at him, touched his face gently, then picked up her rifle and went back to fighting. Keeler did not understand these creatures. As evening approached, the coalition forces pushed the Croith back toward the colony's central hub. Commander Vithan called for a pause to reorganize and treat the wounded. Keeler found a quiet corner and sat down to rest his tired body. Danny Cole sat nearby, wrapping a bandage around his own arm. Blood seeped through the white fabric. "You should See a medic, Kelter said. It's just a scratch, Cole replied. Others need help more than me. The wound looks serious. Cole glanced at his arm as if noticing it for the first time. I've had worse. Besides, we're not done yet. A messenger arrived with news from intelligence. Croath reinforcements were approaching from the north. They would arrive within hours. The coalition was ordered to hold position until extraction ships could reach them. It would be a long night. Keelther processed this information with the calm acceptance of a veteran. Bad news in war was not surprising. It was expected. What mattered was how soldiers responded. He watched Captain Lisa Morgan receive the same news. Her expression did not change. She simply nodded, thanked the messenger, and began adjusting her unit's positions. Then more news arrived. This news was different. A scout reported that the Croath had gathered civilian hostages in the central hub. They were using them as shields. Any assault on the hub would result in civilian deaths. Kelder expected this to cause despair among the coalition forces. Hostage situations were difficult, often impossible. The tactical choice was clear: wait for reinforcements, negotiate if possible, accept losses if necessary. He watched the humans receive this information. That something changed. It was subtle at first. A stillness spread through their ranks. The joking stopped. The movement stopped. Even their breathing seemed to slow. Captain Lisa Morgan stood perfectly motionless, her pale eyes fixed on something far away. Then she spoke. Her voice was quiet, but Keelther heard every word clearly. They have children in there. Danny Cole's face went blank. Amy Brooks stopped smiling. The other humans turned toward their captain with expressions Kelder had never seen on any species. What are your orders, ma'am? Cole asked. Lisa Morgan looked at her soldiers. She looked at the distant hub where innocent lives were held captive. She looked at the darkening sky where enemy reinforcements were approaching. They made a mistake, she said softly. Keller felt something cold move through his chest, not the whisper from before. Something stronger, something that made his scales want to flatten against his body. He did not yet have a name for what he was feeling. Soon he would learn to call it dread. The night came quickly. On Valen 4, darkness spread across the colony like a blanket, broken only by fires that still burned in the destroyed buildings. Keelther crouched behind a barricade with his remaining soldiers. Somewhere in the distance, he could hear the Cleth preparing for their next assault. Commander Vithan was dead. It happened during a surprise attack an hour ago. A Krolus sniper had found their command position and fired 3 times. 2 shots missed, 1 did not. Keelther had held his commander as the old warrior spoke his final words. Watch the humans, Bethan had whispered. There is something about them, something I never understood. Watch them. Keelther learn. Then he was gone. Now Kelder was the senior Sorin officer. He had to coordinate with Captain Lisa Morgan. He had to keep his soldiers alive through the night. He had to somehow deal with the hostage situation that grew worse by the hour. The Croath commander had sent a message. He called himself Warlord Grath. His terms were simple. The coalition would surrender all weapons and submit to capture, or the hostages would be executed one by one. He gave them until dawn to decide. Keelther walked to where the humans had gathered. They sat in a tight circle, speaking in low voices. Their faces were strange in the dim light, empty of expression, empty of everything he had seen before. Captain Morgan looked up as he approached. Keeler, I'm sorry about Commander Vithan. He was a good soldier. He was, Keeler agreed. Now we must decide what to do. There's nothing to decide. Keeler blinked his 4 eyes. The Krillith terms are irrelevant. Morgan said, we're not surrendering. We're not leaving those people to die. We're going in, Captain. The tactical situation makes it extremely difficult. The enemy holds fortified positions. They have hostages positioned throughout the hub. Any assault will result in casualties. Yes, we know. Danny Cole stood up. The bandage on his arm was soaked through with fresh blood, but he did not seem to notice. Ma'am, the squad is ready. We've identified 3 possible entry points. The eastern door is weakest, but it's closest to where they're holding the children. Then that's our entry point, Morgan said. Keeler felt the need to speak reason. If I may, Captain, the Soravan military teaches that sometimes retreat is the wisest choice. We could wait for reinforcements. We could negotiate for more time. We could what? Amy Brooks spoke for the first time. Her voice was different than before. Harder, colder. Could wait while they kill innocent people. Could hide while children scream. She stood up and walked toward Keeler. In the firelight, her young face looked ancient. Her eyes held something that made Keeler want to step backward. There are 43 children in that building, she said. I know because I counted the family records when we landed. 43 kids who woke up this morning thinking it was a normal day. 43 kids who are probably crying right now, wondering if anyone will save them. I understand your feelings, Keeler said carefully, but emotions cannot guide military decisions. You're wrong. Captain Morgan rose to her feet. Emotions are exactly what guide this decision, not anger, not revenge. Something older, something that humans have carried since we lived in caves. And the darkness was full of predators. She stepped close to Keeler. She was shorter than him, weaker, slower. Everything about her physical form suggested she was not a threat, but standing this close, looking into her eyes, Keeler felt his body react as if he faced the most dangerous creature he had ever encountered. When something threatens our children, Morgan said quietly, we become something else. Something that doesn't care about odds or tactics or survival. Something that only knows one truth. We will protect them or we will die trying. And if you fail, then we'll fail, but we won't fail because we didn't try hard enough. We won't fail because we were afraid. We'll fail with our hands around the enemy's throat and our teeth in their flesh. Keeler could not look away from her eyes. They were the same pale color as before, but now they seemed to glow with something cold and terrible. You speak of this as if it is inevitable, he said. It is. Danny Cole checked his rifle. The moment they took those children, they sealed their fate. They just don't know it yet. The Krowith are fierce warriors. So are we, Amy Brooks said. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. They're about to find out how fierce. Keeler looked at the humans around him. They had transformed. These were not the laughing, joking creatures from the ship. These were not the professional soldiers from the battlefield. These were something else entirely, something focused and cold and utterly without doubt. He remembered Commander Vithan's final words. Watch them learn. I Fight beside you, Coulter said. Captain Morgan nodded. We'd be honored to have you. She turned to address all the soldiers, human and Sarin alike. Her voice carried clearly through the night. In 1 hour, we assault the central hub. Our objective is simple: save everyone. Kill anyone who stands in the way. There will be no retreat. There will be no surrender. We go in and we don't stop until every hostage is free or everyone of us is dead. She paused. Any questions? There were none. Coulter prepared his weapons with hands that trembled slightly, not from fear of the battle ahead, from fear of what walked beside him. The humans checked their equipment in silence. Their movements were precise and mechanical. Their faces showed nothing. They had become weapons themselves, aimed at a single target. And Kelder finally understood what he was feeling, the cold sensation in his chest, the whisper of uncertainty that had grown into something stronger. Thought it was dread, not fear of the enemy, fear of his eyes. In 1 hour he would follow these creatures into hell. He was not sure he wanted to see what they would become. When they got there, the assault began. Without warning, one moment the night was quiet, the next the humans were moving through the darkness like ghosts made of violence. Keeler ran with them, his heart's pounding in his chest. He had participated in dozens of assaults throughout his career. He knew the rhythm of battle. He knew the fear and excitement that came with charging toward enemy positions. But this was different. This was something he had never experienced. Humans did not run like soldiers. They flowed like water, silent, inevitable. Their weapons made no sound until they reached the first guards. Then the night exploded. 3 Kroath sentries died before they could raise an alarm. Danny Cole killed 2 of them with his bare hands, moving so fast that Kelder's eyes could barely follow. The 3rd fell to Amy Brooks, who appeared behind him like a shadow and opened his throat with a combat knife. She did not even slow down. They reached the eastern door. Sore of an engineer placed explosives, while the humans formed a protective circle. Keeler crouched among them, watching their faces. There was nothing there, no fear, no excitement, no anger. Just empty focus, like machines performing their function. The door exploded inward. The humans poured through the gap. Inside the hub, chaos erupted. Krelith warriors scrambled to respond, but they were too slow. The humans cut through them like wind through grass. Captain Lisa Morgan led the advance, her rifle firing in short, precise bursts. Every shot found its target. Every movement brought her closer to the hostages. A massive Krolith charged at her with a war axe raised high. Morgan did not retreat. She did not even duck. She stepped forward inside the arc of the weapon and placed a rifle against the creature's eye. The shot echoed through the corridor. Kelder followed close behind, adding his own fire to the assault, but he felt increasingly unnecessary. The humans needed no help. They moved as a single organism, each part knowing exactly where the others would be. They covered angles without speaking. They advanced through doorways without hesitation. They killed without pause. A plasma bolt caught Danny Cole in the shoulder. Keeler saw the flesh burn and the blood spray. He expected the human to fall. Instead, Cole shifted his rifle to his other hand and kept shooting. "Sergeant, you need medical attention," Kelter called out. Cole did not even look at him. Later they pushed deeper into the hub. The Croath resistance grew stronger as they approached the central holding area. Warlord Graf had positioned his best warriors here. Surrounding the hostages were a wall of muscle and weapons. The humans did not care. Amy Brooks was the first through the door. A Croath twice her size swung at her with an armored fist. She ducked under the blow, drove her knife into his knee, then climbed his body like a ladder while he screamed. By the time she reached his throat, 2 more enemies had fallen to her squadmates. Keeler watched her fight. This was the same female who drew pictures and made jokes. The same female who had gently comforted a wounded friend. Now she moved through the enemy like death itself, her young face splattered with blood, her eyes showing nothing but cold purpose. He counted her kills. 17 enemies fell to this small human female before the fight moved on. 17. The Krelith began to break. Keeler saw it in their eyes. They were fierce warriors who believed death brought glory, but they had never faced anything like this. These humans did not fight like mortals. They fought like natural disasters. Unstoppable, uncaring, absolute. Croath warrior tried to surrender. He threw down his weapon and raised his hands. Danny Cole shot him without breaking stride. He was surrendering. Telder said, he was between us and they. Children, Cole replied. They reached the main holding area. Warlord Graf stood at the center, surrounded by the last of his guards. Behind him the hostages huddled in frightened groups. Keeler could see civilians of many species, including the children. Amy Brooks had counted. Their faces were streaked with tears. Stop, Graf bellowed. Come closer and they all die. Captain Morgan stopped. Her soldiers stopped, with her forming a semicircle around the Croath position. For a moment, silence fell. Graf grinned. You see, even humans fear losing their precious innocence. Now you will. Morgan shot him in the knee. The warlord screamed and fell. His guards raised their weapons, but the humans were already moving. It happened so fast that Keeler could only see fragments, muzzle flashes, bodies falling, the sound of bones breaking. In 4 seconds, every Croath guard was dead. Captain Morgan walked toward Graf, who crawled backward on the floor, leaving a trail of blood. She stood over him, her weapon pointed at his head. You took children, she said. I am a warlord of the Dominion. I demand you took children, she repeated. You held them in fear. You threatened to kill them. It is war. Hostages are. Morgan shot his other knee. Graf screamed again, higher and longer. You will live, she said. You will be sent back to your Dominion. You will tell them what happened here. You will tell them what happens when anyone threatens human children. Do you understand? Graf could only whimper. Morgan turned away from him, her face softened as she looked at the hostages. The cold emptiness faded, replaced by something warm and gentle. It's okay, she said. Her voice was suddenly kind. You're safe now. We're going to take you home. A small child, barely old enough to walk, stumbled toward her. Morgan knelt down and caught the child in her arms. She held the little one against her chest and stroked its hair, whispering comfort. Keeler watched this transformation with growing dread. The same hand that had killed so efficiently now held the child with infinite gentleness. The same eyes that had shown nothing but cold death now sparkled with tears. These creatures could switch between mercy and violence. In an instant, they could be monsters and angels in the same breath, and Calder finally understood why the galaxy feared them. It was not their strength, it was not their weapons, it was this ability to care so deeply that they would burn worlds to protect what they loved, this willingness to become nightmares so that innocent people could sleep peacefully. He had fought beside many species. He had never felt dread until today. And the feeling would not leave him. Morning came slowly to violent, for the fires had burned themselves out during the night, leaving behind smoke and ash that drifted through the quiet air. Keeler stood at the edge of the landing zone and watched the extraction ships descend from orbit. The battle was over. The colony was saved. 600 civilians would return to their families, including 43 children who have been certain they would die. The cost had been high. The coalition lost 112 soldiers. The Saravan had suffered greatly, including Commander Vithan, whose body now rested in a transport container waiting to be returned home. Keeler would have to write letters to the families. He would have to explain how their loved ones fell, but he could not stop thinking about the humans. They had lost 31 soldiers in the assault, 31 lives given to save strangers, and now, just hours after the bloodiest fighting Keeler had ever witnessed, they were laughing again. Amy Brooks sat on a broken wall, her legs swinging like a child's. She was telling a story to her squadmates, using her hands to act out some part of it. The others laughed at her words. Someone threw a piece of food at her and she caught it in her mouth, earning more laughter. This was the same female who had killed 17 enemies in close combat, the same female who had moved through the darkness like a spirit of death. Now she looked harmless again, young and cheerful and completely ordinary. Keeler did not understand how she could change so quickly. He did not understand how any of them could. Sergeant Danny Cole walked toward him. The human had finally allowed medics to treat his wounds. His shoulder was wrapped in white bandages and his arm hung in a sling, but he moved easily, as if the injuries meant nothing. "You're staring," Cole said. "I'm trying to understand," Kelter admitted. "Understand what? All of it. How you fight, how you change, how you become one thing and then another." Cole was quiet for a moment. He looked at his fellow soldiers, then back at Keeler. "Do you have children?" he asked. "I have 2 daughters. What would you do if someone threatened them?" Keeler did not hesitate. "I would kill anyone who tried to harm them." "Would you stop killing?" The question caught Keeler off guard. He thought about it carefully. "I do not know. Humans know." Cole said, "We know exactly when we would stop. We would stop when every threat was dead and our children were safe. Not a moment before, but the hostages were not your children. They were strangers. Many of them were not even human." Cole smiled. It was a sad smile full of old weight. "To humans, all children are our children, all innocent. People deserve protection. It's not something we decide, it's something we are." Captain Lisa Morgan approached them. She looked tired. Deep shadows marked her pale eyes and her movements were slower than before, but her voice was steady when she spoke. "Calder, I wanted to thank you for standing with us last night. You didn't have to follow us into that assault. I was told to watch you." Kel said, "To learn, Commander." Vithan's final words. "Did you learn anything?" Keeler considered his answer carefully. "I learned why the galaxy tells stories about humans. I learned that those stories are not exaggerations. If anything, they do not capture the truth. And what is the truth? That humans are the most dangerous species I've ever encountered, not because of your strength or your weapons, because of what lives inside you, the thing that awakens when innocents are threatened. Morgan nodded slowly. We don't like that part of ourselves. Most humans go there whole lives without ever feeling it wake up. We prefer to laugh and joke and live in peace, but when something threatens the people who cannot defend themselves. She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to dot an extraction ship landed nearby, and soldiers began loading the wounded and the dead. Amy Brooks helped carry a stretcher, still talking cheerfully to the injured soldier on it. Danny Cole went to assist with the civilian evacuation, guiding frightened families toward safety. Keeler watched them work. They had returned to their normal selves, helpful, kind, full of jokes and gentle touches. The monsters from last night were gone, hidden somewhere deep inside these ordinary beings, but Keeler knew the monsters were still there, sleeping, waiting, ready to emerge again whenever the call came. He began writing his report in his mind. The Soren High Command needed to know what he had witnessed. They needed to understand what the humans truly were, not weak creatures from a harsh world, not unremarkable soldiers with average statistics. No, humans were something else entirely. They were protectors who could become destroyers in a heartbeat. They were gentle souls who carried infinite violence just beneath the surface. They were friends you wanted beside you, and enemies you prayed you would never face. A young human soldier walked past Keeler, carrying boxes of supplies. He smiled and nodded politely. Beautiful morning, isn't it? The soldier said. Keeler looked at the smoke-filled sky, the burned buildings, the scattered debris of battle. I suppose it is. The soldier laughed and continued on his way, whistling a simple tune. Keeler watched him go. Such an ordinary creature, such a harmless appearance. And yet just hours ago that same soldier had fought with the fury of a storm. The extraction ships were nearly loaded. Soon Keeler would leave this planet and return to his people. He would file his report. He would answer questions from commanders who would not believe what he told them. He would try to explain the unexplainable, but he would never forget what he had learned. Here, he had fought beside many species. During his career, he had seen courage and skill and sacrifice from warriors of all kinds, but never in all his years of service, and he experienced true dread. Not until he fought beside humans, not until he saw what they became when innocent lives were at stake. And not until he understood deep in his warrior's heart that if humanity ever turned its protective fury toward the Soren, nothing in the galaxy could stop them. Keeler boarded his transport ship. Through the window he could see the humans gathering for their own departure. They were laughing again, playing games, being ordinary. He shivered. Doubt the transport lifted off, carrying him away from Valen 4, away from the colony, away from the humans who had taught him the true meaning of fear. But the dread stayed with him. It would stay with him forever. Some lessons once learned could never be forgotten.